What up, y'all? It's your boy back again. In this episode, we're going to deal with day two's testimony, where R. Kelly's physician and Jerronda Pace continues her testimony from day one. When we left off, day one, in that last episode, we were discussing me not believing Jerronda Pace at this point, that her character was in question. She was not a woman of her word. You signed the NDA, non-disclosure agreement. Somehow or another, you're out here still having a conversation, and you violated basically that NDA. This was a young lady who we found out was cutting school every day to go up to the trial and see R. Kelly, who was standing trial for child pornography at that point, found not guilty, but standing trial for it. So you can't say she didn't know who he was or what he was thought to be already, unless you're saying she was a little slow. This is also a young lady we found out through last episode was what? Going through her 2017 interview she did with BuzzFeed, we found out that she told him she was an adult. And she told him she was 18. She told the courts she was 18 to get in the courts. So again, she was able to get in the courtroom without showing ID, which is very interesting, but cool. She got in without being able to show ID. Then she was able to get in. She then showed him a fake ID stating that she was of age, which is still very interesting. Because at that point, I don't know how you can come and retroactively say, yo, he was sleeping with a minor. I told him that. Yeah, you told him he was sleeping with a minor. But that was after you showed him proof that you weren't a minor. That was after you already had sex with him, and then you informed him. So, let's get into day two of Jerronda Pace's testimony. Jerronda Johnson Pace's testimony. And let's kind of see what's going on here. So it picks up by saying Pace is a key prosecution witness whose accusations include several hallmarks of the criminal enterprise prosecutors must prove in order for jurors to find Kelly guilty. So to me, if this is a key prosecution witness, then the prosecution lost big and they don't really have a strong case. Now, what they may try and do is bring in overabundance of accusations and similar stories to try and convince somebody that this is what that is. But if we take feelings out and we take the Aaliyah situation out and we take the 15-year-old girl he had sex with on the tape out and just deal with these on their own merits alone, then to me, you can't find her credible and you can't find him guilty, not for her testimony. Now, what the next few witnesses have to say, that's another conversation. But for what she has to say, no, can't find him guilty on it. Over 2 days of testimony, Pace, now 28, told jurors Kelly had sex with her repeatedly when she was 16 after meeting him in Chicago. During their time together, his abuse and control of her escalated, she said. And he made her follow manipulative rules that prosecutors said are central to his alleged criminal scheme. Now, I want you to understand he made her follow rules that prosecutors said are central to his alleged criminal scheme. Because at this point, before all this came together, you have to understand a lot of these women were lined up before these charges were brought. So we don't know if stories have been conspired and put together now to all have similar stories to make this happen. Because the one thing we also talked about was when we did the timeline episode leading up to this, there wasn't really ever talk of R. Kelly being abusive. Now, there was conversations about, hey, he liked them young, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. He do like them young. Now, we never heard, yo, he's smacking women around. He dragging them around rooms with leashes and treating them like dogs and keeping them malnourished, stuff like that. We never heard that. Those accusations came way, way, way later on. Now, could he have evolved into that because he got bored with other stuff? He sure could have. I won't deny that that's a possibility. So, on direct examination by prosecutors Thursday, she said Kelly at least once made particular requests about her wardrobe when they had sex, which we already talked about in the BuzzFeed episode we just did. He wanted me to put my hair up in pigtails and dress like a Girl Scout, she told the jury, in steady, measured tones. Now, if he did request that, that does make him look even sicker than what this is, because Girl Scouts are usually little kids. And see, that does, when she portrays and presents and says Girl Scout, what she's now doing is putting you in the mindset of pedophile. Yet she says she told him she was 19. So see, that's a long leap to say he's a pedophile, but I told him I was 19, and that's why he was with me. So, like I said, you have to pardon me on the inconsistencies when I'm reading a lot of these things and I'm just looking on it for face value and saying, yo, that doesn't make any sense. And when Kelly's attorney, Devereaux Canick, took over for cross-examination, she maintained the same composure. She answered his questions in almost monotone sentences. Even as he asked if she was a groupie or a stalker or a liar, or if she had a sexual relationship with one of Kelly's associates. Now, what we do have to understand is she is a groupie. There's only groupies go and sneak into courthouses and sit and wait for attention or looking for a wave as she was looking for, just some acknowledgement that she was there. So we can't acknowledge she was a groupie. A stalker, that is stalker behavior, to cut school every day to go and visit somebody at a courthouse, and you guys haven't had any other contact. Yes, that's stalker behavior. That's somebody who's way ahead and way over their skis at that point. And a liar. She told you she was a liar already, because she said when I first was going to see him, I'm assuming she had to have a fake ID to get in the courtroom, but she told the courtroom people that she was of age. She was 18. Then when she first met R. Kelly, she said she told him she was 19. So we've established she was a liar. Now, we have never established whether she had a sexual relationship with one of Kelly's associates, but, that's neither here nor there. Canick sought to portray Pace as a starry-eyed Kelly superfan who turned on the singer to cash in on the accusations. In one photo he displayed, dating from Kelly's 2008 criminal case, Pace is walking next to Kelly outside the Leeton Criminal Court building, beaming, leaning around him as if trying to catch his eye. Canick also picked out some discrepancies in Pace's testimony and her previous statements to federal authorities. Koenig also asked a series of extraordinarily detailed questions about what Pace said was her final sexual encounter with Kelly in January 2010. Did she fall down when he slapped her? Koenig asked. Would I've asked that question? No. I don't think a man should be asking a woman that question. Not about getting beat and abused by another man. Nah, he should have had his female lawyer asking that question. Which side of her face did he slap? Did it leave any marks of swelling? Did he slap her first or choke her? Where was she when he spat on her? See, at that point, now we come off as insensitive. You have to let a woman ask that line of questioning. That's a huge mistake and misstep by R. Kelly's defense team. But it was not until prosecutors in their second round of questioning had Pace read from her own journal at an entry about that final alleged encounter that she broke down and began to cry, sniffling and dabbing her eyes. And again, this is now when the damsel of distress is getting ready to come out. On cue, you got to understand, this case now has probably been 6 to 7 years in the making. So she's programmed already and ready for this moment. This is the moment they've been waiting for. Since they got it a civil case, since she violated the NDA, since now all of a sudden, when Surviving R. Kelly came out, she wanted to say her piece and all of that. You have to understand, they've been setting this stage up since then. This is kind of like Simone Biles training and preparing for that one moment in the Olympics. The Olympics are now for her. This is it. This is her moment to shine. So when you say, how could she just cry or do all these things at the drop of a hat? Been training for this moment for the last 5-6 years. So you can put yourself emotionally in a place, because as we'll read further, she's still in love with R. Kelly. So you can put yourself in a place of, he's hurt me. He doesn't want to be with me. I still love him. I wish these children were his children. All of those things to make yourself now be vulnerable and emotional in that moment. Now, what we see are the tears. We don't know why those tears are actually falling down at that point. I went to Rob's house and Rob called me silly. He called me a silly bitch, she read. Rob slapped me 3 times and said if I lied to him again, it's not going to be an open hand next time. So now she's painting a picture of, yo, this is Ike Turner. This man is crazy. He spit on my face and in my mouth, which means now he spit on her face and in her mouth. She opened her mouth up. He would have now needed to direct her, hey, open your mouth and spit in it. He choked me during an argument. I had sex with him, oral sex with him. Then I got fed up and I went home and confessed. I had sex with him, oral sex with him. You could have just left that all as I had sex with him. But she wanted to, she's now looking to itemize every single thing that happened, which is another reason why I know she's a liar. Because it goes from I had sex with him, oral sex with him, then I got fed up and went home and confessed. Well, if he holding you captive and emotionally you're that beat up where you can't really think for yourself, then how do you get fed up and go home and go confess? Which means if you got fed up and was allowed to leave, then nobody was holding you captive or doing nothing that outrageous to you when you were saying, yo, I would go days, without a couple of days where I may be in one room. So you would be stuck in one room for 2 days, but you could just get up after oral sex because you was fed up and go home. That doesn't make sense to me. She should have been able to, if you're going to tell this story, you should have created a story where you had to say, hey, yo, I snuck out the back door, ran away, seen a car, jumped in that car, went this way, or something like that. To say I just plainly got up, I got fed up and went home and confessed means nobody was really holding you against your will. That was a place you wanted to be at, and you was willing to absorb and take all of the emotional and physical abuse if it happened. You was going to take all of that as long as he was willing to be with you, which now goes in line with the lawyers saying now, just a disgruntled woman now, another groupie. You've been replaced by a new woman, which you said there was a new woman when you did your interview. There were more new girls coming in. You wasn't getting the attention anymore. So at that point, how can I not believe that you're a groupie and a liar? Her voice wavered and she asked to be excused for a bathroom break. Again, this is getting hot and heavy. Because at this point, you really shouldn't even be emotionally bothered by it anymore. Because she never says or states he raped her. And she does state she still wanted to be with him. She was still in love with him. So, at this point, you on your fifth child with your husband. You should be in a whole different place emotionally. But again, I have my own thoughts. I told you I don't believe she was a virgin, like she stated that he took her virginity. I do believe she was paid to get married to her now husband, to make her appear to be more wholesome to the rest of the country as they prosecute R. Kelly. Because you don't want her to seem like a woman who's having babies with different men and can't keep her legs closed, because now she does come off as a jump off, as a whore. So we're going to dress this whole situation up now to make this appear to be a wholesome situation, a young lady who was robbed of her virtue. And this is what this is. So the journal entry describing the alleged encounter had been written at the direction of Pace's civil lawyers, who had been hired afterward. Pace had previously testified that she contacted the attorneys because she wanted to press charges, but they advised her against doing so. So again, the journal entry describing the alleged encounter had been written at the direction of Pace's civil lawyers, who had been hired afterwards. So she called some people. They told her to write it down in a journal, and then she hired them after that. So again, I don't even know if that's how this law firm is operating, because the law firm that the lawyer that she was with, which we discussed also in last episode, they made it their business to get these underage girls to get R. Kelly. They was making a killing and a living off of civil suits against R. Kelly at that point. But they didn't want to take any of these things to criminal court. And again, you don't want it to go to criminal court, because then there's a different level of burden of proof that needs to be provided. Because there would have had to been some proof the journal entries are coming as these things are happening. Not this happened in 2009, and in 2011 I called these people. 2010 I called these people. A year later they advised me to write a journal entry, and then we use this as evidence. No, that doesn't work that way, because now we're concocting stories. Now there's a conspiracy, honestly, to go and take down somebody. Kanik had confirmed on cross-examination that she lied about her age at least twice. First during Kelly's 2008 criminal case, when she told court officials she was 18. And then again before a sexual encounter with Kelly in 2009, when she told him she was 19. So he confirmed on cross-examination from her that during the 2008 criminal case, she told court officials she was 18. So that's one lie. Then again, before her first sexual encounter with Kelly in 2009, she confirmed that she told him she was 19. Pace also reiterated on cross-examination that she first told R. Kelly her true age after he performed a sex act on her and she became uncomfortable. So again, not before the sex. And that's important to hear. I know a lot of people who want to deal with their own emotions about, like I said, do we have proof he slept with Aaliyah and married her when she was 14? Yes, and he should have went to jail for that. Should he have gone to jail for sleeping with the underage girl that he had the sex tape out with? He sure should have. Should have went to jail for that. And there was a lot of people profiting off of selling child pornography who didn't go to jail for that. But he should have went to jail for that. But both those families decided their children's sexual encounters with him was worth, the money was worth more than prosecuting him criminally. People just wanted to be taken care of financially. So basically they prostituted and pimped their daughters out. So at that point, those are two different situations. I told you about the OJ situation. Do I believe he killed Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson? I sure do. But he got off. You couldn't prove it. He beat it. So then they went back and they got him in Las Vegas for something trumped up at that point. And that's kind of how I feel with this at this point, at least with this first witness. Was he guilty of Aaliyah? Sure was. Was he guilty of Sparkle's, niece or cousin, as we might want to say? I'm not sure that relationship. Was he guilty of that? Was that him on that tape? It sure was. Should he have been punished for those two things? Sure should have. But he wasn't. He was never charged with marrying Aaliyah and beat the child pornography charges on that sex tape. So at that point, you got to just chalk that up for what that is. We cannot now hold that against him in a different case. We have to look at this case and view this case on the merits of that. Just the merits of this case. That's it. Because what you'll then start doing is you'll start saying someone is guilty because you feel the need to punish him for Aaliyah and the other young lady on the sex tape. When this woman right here is proven she's a liar. So no, we don't go, if you want a fair justice system, you don't go now and punish him for this when this young lady is lying because you couldn't get him for Aaliyah and the other young lady. But so his lawyer goes on to ask Pace, but you were not so uncomfortable with the situation that you said, hell no, I'm not taking off my clothes. I'm going home, Kanak asked. That's correct, Pace said. So again, she wasn't too uncomfortable with the situation to tell him, no, stop, don't do none of that. She was enjoying it. She wanted every last bit of that. And see, for me, it's, again, what are we upset with? Because what you're saying is she can't consent at 16. She can't consent to, at that point, what is he, 42, I believe? She can't consent to a 42-year-old at 16. But she can consent to a 16-year-old. Now, see, for me, you have to explain to me why you're able to consent for one, but not the other. Because the act is the act at that point. We're consenting for the same act. And see, that's where, I say the laws get tricky. Because should you just honestly make sex illegal to a certain age? You probably should. I believe, honestly, you probably should just make sex illegal to the age of 18. Would it prevent a few more teenage pregnancies? Probably hundreds of thousands, to be honest. Probably millions of teenage pregnancies will be prevented if you just made sex illegal. But, we can't keep getting to this place of 42-year-old man sleeps with 16-year-old woman. This is a creep. But we get an attaboy when a 16-year-old boy is sleeping with a 42-year-old woman. It's, hey, yo, did she teach you any tricks, any of that? Nobody's worried about that. When a 13-year-old boy is sleeping with a 16, 17-year-old girl, we're not looking to charge her with statutory rape. 16-year-old boy sleeps with a 13-year-old girl, we're looking to throw him under the bus. So we, at some point in society, we keep screaming equality. We're going to have to sit down and address why these laws and these thought processes are like that. Since we believe it's about equality, because women love screaming equality until they don't want equality. Then they want to scream, he took advantage of me, I'm a woman. Well, when the shoe and the roles are reversed and the shoe is on the other foot, when I'm 13 years old, I'm 14 years old. I was dating a girl 19 years old with a full-blown kid at that point. I mean, my grandmother was really the only one who was just like, hey, yo, you realize what you're doing here? I brought her over to the house, everything. And it was kind of one of those, it was what it was. But you have to ask yourself, roles reverse. And that's my sister bringing a 19-year-old man with a child over and she's 14. They kicking his head in. Why do we treat those situations so differently? Now, Candy Cat Pace read from a settlement agreement she reached with Kelly, in which the singer denied all wrongdoing and maintained that she showed him an ID proving she was 19. Bringing up the settlement could perhaps be a way to get Kelly's side of the story in front of jurors without having to put him on a witness stand. So again, she denied, in which the singer denied all wrongdoing and maintained that she showed him an ID proving she was 19. So they signed a written agreement saying that he didn't knowingly have sex with her when she was underage. So all these people entered in this agreement knowing that this was a lie. So again, is it about criminal justice or is it about a financial come up in a financial gain? Because it seems like now it's just women looking for young girls or looking for a way to game the system and pimp the system. And they're pimping these young girls out. Because for me, at some point, you would think this law firm and these lawyers would want criminal justice for a man who continues to do these things. But no, that's not what they wanted. They just wanted financial justice. And they wanted financial justice because, again, criminally, they don't really have a case. Because if they had a case criminally, guess what? You still get the civil lawsuit and you still win. But you could put his ass behind bars. But again, it's like I keep telling you, put him behind bars, then guess what? He can't do this anymore. So now guess what happens? Those lawyers can't do what? They can't eat off of it anymore because he in jail. So now we have to find a new golden goose. So we're going to keep the golden goose out because he's the gift that keeps on giving. And it's why I say a lot of people failed a lot of young ladies at this point. And they allowed this behavior to go on because people were gaming and gaining from it financially. They was gaming the system and people were able to gain monetary value from him being out of jail and not prosecuting him. And Pace testified, even after getting lawyers and reaching settlement agreements, she still wanted to have a relationship with Kelly, which again says what? She told you, he spit in my mouth, slapped me, spit on my face, knocked me down to the floor. All of these things happen. I'm still in love with him. Still want to be friends with him. Still want to be in a relationship with him. So again, what are we to take from that? Either she's suffering from battered woman syndrome or her home life was that terrible that he was giving her some attention and love she had been sorely missing. One of the two. And it probably was the second one because right after that relationship ends, she's now what, 28 years old. With 12 years later, she's married, 5 children. So we get right into a relationship, we get married, we got a little money in our pocket, and now I go have a family. So, you just got to call it for what it is. You wanted to be his friend, Koenig said, get the relationship back in gear again. That's correct, Pace said. So, right. So, again, this is devastating for the prosecution because this is one of their star witnesses. She's telling you that I still want, he was so bad and caused so much damage. I still wanted to be in a room with him. Still wanted to get my head smacked around by him. I still wanted him to spit in my mouth and keep me locked away in a room for days on end without eating, without really eating. Still wanted to be a sex slave. That's how terrible of a human being he was to me. So you take from that what you want. The last witness of day 2 is R. Kelly's longtime doctor, Chris McGrath, a physician and professor at Northwestern School of Medicine. McGrath diagnosed Kelly with herpes and regularly prescribed him medication for that condition at least as far back as 2007, he testified. Prosecutors allege Kelly had sex with at least 3 women without disclosing that he had a sexually transmitted disease, which is illegal in some of the states where he is alleged to have engaged in those acts. So again, I have this theory that, well, not even a theory. I have a solution for this situation. I really do believe with STDs, especially things like herpes, gonorrhea, HIV, those type things, we should have some type of mark or tattoo we put on somebody, either a little mark right on the back of the hand or right on the arm, but just some type of permanent mark for those people's partners who will be dealing with them, for them to know exactly what it is. Now, it doesn't have to disclose what they have, but when you see that mark, it should let you know, okay, this person has an STD. They've been diagnosed with one already. Because even with the situation with the rapper, I think it's DaBaby or Lil Baby, I believe it's DaBaby though, with him and his comments some weeks ago about HIV and AIDS and how up in arms the gay community got about it. The one thing you have to understand is, yes, HIV exists, and gay people were screaming about how tragic that pandemic is, and he's insensitive to what's going on. It's not really being insensitive. Is you guys have to be held accountable though for having unprotected sex. Like, if I understand this pandemic is running wild, no different than COVID at this point. We understand a pandemic is what it is. So if you're going out places without a mask on and you're sitting around in close quarters without a mask on, not to say you're asking for it, but I mean, you taking a risk with your life at that point. And to be in an environment with people who are enjoying to have unprotected sex, and you know this disease is running rampant among people who are enjoying to have unprotected sex, to then go have unprotected sex says what? I'm gonna just take my chances. The sexual gratification and feeling I'm gonna get out of having unprotected sex, I would rather have that feeling than walk out of here safe and not have this disease. So I'll take my chances. Now, is that being insensitive? No, that's just you needing to be held accountable for, I just wanted to have unprotected sex with him. And the fallout and the blowback from that is this. And that's fine. But we need to accept what the fallback and the blowback, what the fallout and the blowback is from that. Nothing more, nothing less. But for me, I'm a person who believes there should be some type of little mark, though, that you put on people, because you just can't trust another human being. If they like somebody, they're not going to tell them, yo, I got herpes, or I got HIV, or I got gonorrhea, because they understand at that point that person not going to deal with them. So what they'll do is say, yo, I was safe, and I mean, thankfully I've never been burnt. But, you'll have people who just, yo, I was safe, or I wasn't at risk right now. I know how my body operates, so I ain't have to tell you. It's only really transferable, or you can only get it if we have it doing this, or I need to have an outbreak for you to get it. And it's like, no, you don't make that decision for me. Let me make the decision whether I now want to take that chance and deal with you, though. But let's keep going. After first suspecting that Kelly had herpes, McGrath instructed him to notify all his sex partners. He said, Kelly said if he had, asked if he should use a condom during sex. I should put a hood on it then, Kelly allegedly said, and McGrath answered yes. Now, McGrath instructed him to notify all his sex partners. And that's what I'm saying. You're putting a lot of onus on somebody to now inform other people that they have it. Because now, once you've transmitted it to 3 to 4 women, now those 3 to 4 women are now getting ready to go sleep with the regular partners that they have. Because you got to understand, these are just one-night stands R. Kelly is basically having. These are not really women he in relationships with. So now those women are going back to sleep with the other 2 or 3 dudes who are in their rotation. Those other 2, 3 dudes in their rotation are sleeping with another 4 to 5 women in their rotation. Those 4 to 5 women are now combined sleeping with another 15 to 20 men in their rotation, and this shit just starts to spread. And this is how this goes. And it's why I say, the cure, the money is in the medicine. Because yes, you could do some things to prevent people from transmitting this by just saying, hey, no, by law, we have to mark you like this, or you have to get this type mark on your hand to let people know. It's a permanent mark to let people know you have this. So at that point, at least somebody knows. But at that point, then we can't keep overcharging people with these ungodly medicine prices. Big Pharma can't win. And at the end of the day, we want Big Pharma to win, because Big Pharma wins, which is more money. But we also know people will die from this. So it's also population control. So you always got to understand, when I say during episodes, everything is connected, I truly mean everything is connected. Kelly would usually pick up his prescriptions for herpes medication at the Rock and Roll Walgreens, McGrath testified. And that's just basically the Walgreens by the Rock and Roll McDonald's. McGrath would call in prescriptions to that Walgreens so often that he still has the phone number memorized, he said. McGrath also testified that he was a personal friend of Kelly's up until Kelly's recent legal troubles. Kelly did not pay McGrath for his medical services, but McGrath would get free concert tickets and free airfare to travel to Kelly's shows, he testified. Prosecutors displayed a photo of McGrath with Kelly from 2019, both of them grinning, Kelly holding a cigar. So again, if he didn't pay for his medical services, he would be needing to get more. He was getting way more than free concert tickets and free airfare to travel to Kelly's shows. That's a lot of access to a lot of free sex and access to women, booze, and other celebs. That's how basically R. Kelly was paying them. And because he was enjoying the life of being R. Kelly's right-hand man, he was getting what? I'm getting his throwaways I'm getting the groupies, the throwaways he don't want. I'm getting a chance to have sex with them. I'm getting a chance to meet Jay-Z, Lady Gaga, all of these celebrities and superstars. And I get a chance to be the man sitting next to the man. But also, once that was no longer beneficial to him and everything came, the house of cards came tumbling down around R. Kelly, what happened then? He abandoned him, just like Jay-Z did, just like Lady Gaga did. See, when he was of use to Jay-Z, Jay-Z used him. Let me get the best of both worlds 1 and 2. I forgot Unfinished Business was part 2. Lady Gaga, let me get this. The BET Awards. Let's have you on here winning awards. The NAACP, let's give you an image award. See, all these people knew about the Aaliyah situation already and the sex tape, and none of that was ever a problem. They only distanced themselves once the heat came, and then they got out of there. Which means they didn't have a problem with any of the issues. What they had a problem with was the blowback. McGrath would attend parties at the Olympia Fields mansion, and his wife had a friendly mother-like relationship with the singer. He said, sometimes Kelly would invite him to a Chicago studio to listen to music. The friendship ended in 2019, McGrath testified, around the time of Kelly's most recent criminal charges. On cross-examination, Kelly's attorney, Nicole Blank Becker, challenged McGrath's diagnosis since there was no positive test for herpes in Kelly's medical records. But herpes can be complicated to detect via testing, and there are other ways to confirm a diagnosis, McGrath said. Kelly had recurrent outbreaks of symptoms consistent with herpes, and the medication that McGrath prescribed did work to help the symptoms. Is there any doubt in your mind that the defendant had genital herpes? Assistant U.S. Attorney Nadia Shahada asked. No, McGrath said. So, as we're ending this, day 2, these are 2 big losses for the prosecution. And let me tell you why. You have Jerronda Pace, who agreed in a settlement agreement that R. Kelly was shown an ID by her that she was 19 years old and that he did not knowingly have sex with her when she was underage. You also have proof from her that she lied and told court officials she was 18 instead of 16 to get in to see the court case. We also have on record from her that I still wanted a relationship with him and a friendship with him, even though he was the most terrible man I've ever met, verbally and physically abusive to me. So her credibility is shot at this point. Not to mention she violated the NDA, which now lets you know for the right amount of money, she's willing to say anything. So her credibility is shot. Then we get to Mr. McGrath. And I know you're probably wondering how I'm going to spin this, but this is where he took his hit for me, is when they asked. There was no positive test for herpes in Kelly's medical records. So for 12 years, you was treating somebody for a disease and prescribing medication for a disease that he never tested positive for. You're going to have to make that make sense to me. At some point, a test should have been able to detect that he had herpes. At some point in that 12 years of treatment. So again, that's day 2 of the R. Kelly trial wrapped up. We'll either be back to finish up day 3 later today or no later than tomorrow. It's your boy, the Hood Nerd. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, leave a comment. I'm out.